Thank you so much and welcome back to France 24. Something of a hero's welcome there by all accounts, looking at the images from Abidjan this evening. What do you read into that?
Well, what it confirms is what we really have known for a long time, which is there's a lot of support for Laurent Gbagbo, particularly in the south of Ivory Coast, in the city of Abidjan and in the areas to the west of the city. And that's something we'd seen in election results, and we'd seen over the years in street demonstrations in his support, and just generally in the political mood. So that confirms a political reality, which is that ultimately, although Ivory Coast has gone through a number of elections since the events of 2010, 2011, ultimately still Mr. Gbagbo, President Ouattara, and another former president, Henri Bédier, need to come to some sort of peaceful, consensual understanding, or at least give a signal, if you like, that the old bitterness are over, and that this can therefore for political allegiances in different regions to each of those three men. But they are all tired of conflict. They're all tired of worrying about the risk that there could be another upsurge in violence, as there had been 10 or 11 years ago. And so that's really the significance of this event. It could open the door, in fact, to some sort of form of reconciliation. It doesn't mean they all have to agree, but merely the fact that the government, once Mr. Gbagbo's acquittal had been confirmed, said, yes, he's free to return, and yes, we will facilitate that, we'll provide him with the necessary passports and so on, is in itself a gesture, if you like, an olive branch.
I'm just wondering, 3,000 people lost their lives back in 2010 when Mr. Gbagbo refused to concede defeat in the election. And I'm assuming there are a lot of people who are equally unhappy to see his return to the country. Obviously, they weren't the ones lining the streets from Abidjan airport to the city centre today, but they're somewhere. I'm wondering if we're perhaps going to hear from them or see perhaps action from them in the days ahead. Is that something you could envisage?
I think on the whole, actually, this will be welcomed because it's the government that has facilitated the return. Supporters of the government are likely to back that decision. Obviously, Mr. Gbagbo's own supporters are in favour of it, and the supporters of Mr. Bédier, the other big political player, they'll also support it because their party is now allied with the Gbagbo camp. The key signal came a bit earlier this year. Last year, there was a pretty tough presidential election. Obviously, Mr. Gbagbo couldn't take part, but there was a lot of bitterness and angry debate around it. But in the parliamentary elections that followed early this year, all of the main parties took part, and they took part on a pretty consensual basis. Obviously, they had arguments and debates about policies, but they accepted the process and they accepted the result. And so, actually, I think this is a very positive sign. And Mr. Gbagbo himself has signalled that his approach is going to be one of leading towards reconciliation. That doesn't.
Okay.
Obviously, he may want to run in a future election.
All right, the signal is cutting out a little bit there. We're going to have to leave it there. We'd love to talk to you for longer, but the signal is just not quite up to scratch. So we'll try to speak to you on another occasion. David Melly, thank you very much indeed for speaking, though, to France 24.